Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the studios of Norton Media Center. This evening, Norton Cable Access Corp. is pleased and proud to sponsor this debate for those seeking the office of Selectmen in the town of Norton. My name is Bill Gouveia. I'm your town moderator and a columnist for the Sun Chronicle, and I will serve as moderator this evening. Norton Media Center is part of a nonprofit corporation run by the Norton Cable Access Commission. That commission is appointed by selectmen and made up of Norton residents who work to bring you local and public access programming here on your public access channels. The funds to operate this studio and bring you programming such as this come from a portion of your cable bill, which, according to Norton's cable contract with its provider, is designed to improve public access programming. The purpose of this debate tonight is to allow you, the citizens and voters, to hear directly from the candidates who seek to represent you. We hope you will use any information and insights you gain this evening as part of your decision-making process when you go to the polls on April 23rd. Tonight, we will feature the candidates for Board of Selectmen. The rules for this forum are simple, and before I introduce our candidates, I would like to quickly review the ground rules for this evening, all of which have been supplied to the candidates in advance. Each candidate will get no more than 3 minutes to make an opening statement, and you don't have to go the whole 3. They will go in order according to a drawing done prior to the debate. After opening statements, the candidates will be asked a question by me. All the questions come from me, and no one other than me has seen them since they were created. So if you don't like the questions, it's all my fault. Each candidate will have no more than 3 minutes to answer the question, and all candidates will be asked the same question. After the last candidate has answered, the candidates will get no more than 1 minute for rebuttal. After the last question, the candidates will be given no more than 3 minutes to make a closing statement. Again, they will go in reverse order that was picked before the debate. The time for each candidate will be kept by the moderator. When only 15 seconds remains, I will tell the candidate their time is expiring. I'm not going to hold anybody right to the second, but you'll know that you need to wrap it up. If they do not end in time, it will be my job to politely stop them and ensure fairness for all. With that all said and done, let us now move to the forum for Board of Selectmen. Candidates, welcome to the Norton Media Center debate.
Good evening. Good evening.
There are 2 incumbent selectmen seeking re-election to the board this year, and 2 people seeking the post for the first time. It is my pleasure to introduce them. Our first incumbent candidate is Mr. Bob Kimball, to the far right, or your left on the screen. Next to him is incumbent selectman Bob Salvo.
Good evening.
Next is challenger Jack Conway.
Good evening.
And last but never least is challenger Renee Deli.
Good evening.
So now, candidates, we will begin with your opening statement, and the first opening statement, according to my list, will come from Mr. Conway.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Jack Conway, and I'm running for the Board of Selectmen in Norton. A lot of people ask why I want to run, and I believe in sometimes being the change you want to see in the world. And after a few years being frustrated with how I saw the town direction taking, I knew I needed to step up and take some action. I want to be a leader who is honest, transparent, accountable, and authentic. And I think I can be that leader for this town. My skills as a project manager, working with a diverse group of scientists across multiple campuses, has taught me skills to build relationships, to find solutions creatively, and work together to a common goal. That, I believe, is what this town needs more than anything, is leaders who are willing to work together to bridge gaps and find solutions to the problems that we all think we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Our second opening statement will come from Mr. Kimball.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bob Kimball, selectman running for re-election for the 9th time to the Norton Board of Selectmen. I ran my original campaign on the promises of vision and commitment. I believe I have lived up to these words in my past 24 years of service with an open mind to change and new ideas. I strongly believe the town is moving in the right direction with additional growth to our industrial and commercial tax base. These developments will reduce the burden on taxpayers and increase much-needed revenues to the town. We as citizens need to explore ways to fund our schools, run our town offices, support our police and fire departments, create services for our seniors, and improve our decaying infrastructure. These issues will continue to be my #1 priority. I have served on the Board of Selectmen as chairman 11 times and recently served on other committees, including the Gold Star Committee, Town Common Revitalization Committee, the Capital Improvements Committee, Cemetery Commission, and Norton Village Center Vision Group, to mention just a few. I have served on many committees over the years, including the Finance Committee for 4 years and the chair in 1988. I am past president of the Bristol County Selectmen's Association. I served as a member of the Bristol County Metropolitan Planning Organization. I must admit that some issues, mandates, and new unfunded state and local laws can lead to frustration. I have learned we must live within these rules, change them when we can, and abide by them even though we do not agree with them. I had to learn fast as a young selectman that certain changes can be difficult. Although I did not always agree with the outcome, I voted based on what was the best for the citizens of Norton as a whole, setting aside my personal agenda for the good of the town. Our small town atmosphere is changing. We need to continue to find creative ways to make Norton a place we are all proud of. I believe I can continue to help the town lead with vision and commitment for the next 3 years as I've done in the past. I promise to listen, make decisions based on factual information and for the good of the town. I want to thank the citizens of Norton and my wife Paula for your support and guidance. And please take time to vote on Tuesday, April 23rd, and make sure your vote counts. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is from Mr. Salvo.
Thank you. Before I begin, I'd like to say it's been a great honor to be part of this program, and I thank you for inviting me tonight. Hello, my name is Robert Salvo Sr. I've been married for 38 years to my lovely wife, Dawn. I have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren. I lived in Norton for 41 years. My priority's always been the town of Norton and all the committees that I've served on. I am now running for re-election of the Board of Selectmen that I have served for many years and on various committees. I am presently serving on the Norton Housing Authority Board of Commissioners as chairman. At the Housing Authority, I have accomplished so many great things for the residents in the community, including new roofs, windows, painting, a site project that included new water mains, all the new septic lines, update roadways and drainage. As chairman of this commission, I have overseen the influx of $4.9 million for renovations under the current leadership and $1.8 million in previous years. This is a total of $6.7 million in renovations, of which funding for this has not been added to your property taxes. We know where to reach out, obtain funding for capital improvement projects. In addition, the Housing Authority is contributing financially $1.2 million to kickstart this effort in collaborating with the town to run a new sewer line that will positively impact the Housing Authority, the schools, and all small businesses along the way. This project surely goes a long ways towards keeping businesses in Norton. Once this project is complete, the leaching fields in this Housing Authority can be removed, and we are working to formulate a plan to increase our housing portfolio for additional senior housing. During my tenure as selectman, we have been involved with zoning changes that were approved by the town meeting to create new commercial complex on Leonard Street. This is a project that will bring much needed tax revenue to Norton. Currently, we are working on a master plan to update our zoning map, a regional bike path, more traffic signals at Worcester Street 123, and at exit 10 at 495. We are also updating plans for the Norton Business Park and Route 140 corridor, which includes the Village Center plan. All these infrastructure changes are taking place with a technical assistant with the SERPID, Southeastern Regional Planning Economic Development. I am honored to serve the town of Norton as selectman. I hope that my record presented here for you this evening, and that throughout many years of weekly meetings I have attended, you will re-elect me as your selectman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. And our last opening statement is from Ms. Deli.
Thank you, Bill. Excuse me. Thank you to the Norton Media Center for hosting us tonight, and certainly to those who will be watching this online or at home. Thank you as well to the cast I have standing here with me. I'm certainly honored to be amongst Bob Salvo and Bob Kimball, who have served our community for several years, and I'm honored to be here with Jack as a challenger for the Board of Selectmen. My name is Renee Deli, and I am running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen, and I hope that you will vote for me on Tuesday, April 23rd. I'd like to give you just a little background about myself, where I came from, who I am, and what I see as some of the challenges and the issues within our town. Excuse me. I'm originally from Ohio. I moved to Massachusetts in 2005. I was introduced to Norton through the Norton Women's Softball League in 2008. I played softball for several years with some individuals from the community and some from neighboring communities. I had an opportunity a few years afterwards in 2010 to purchase a home here, and I've been living here ever since with my wife Tracy and our two children, Spencer, who's 4, and our daughter Quinn, who is 2. We also have 2 dogs. I have to mention them. Their names are Beckett and Castle. I've worked in the financial services industry for my entire career. I did this after graduating with a Bachelor of Science in criminal justice at Bowling Green State University, which is also in Ohio. I transitioned into risk management about 10 years into my career and have been there ever since with a focus on business continuity and emergency management. I have opportunities in my profession because I get to ask the questions, what if? I get to propose challenges. I have an opportunity to work with people to mitigate problems, to find better solutions, and ultimately resolutions to those things that may face as challenges. I currently volunteer with the Sandy Hook Promise organization. It's an organization focused on preventing gun violence before it happens. The organization was started by parents of children who were victims in the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. I also am vice chairman on Norton's Industrial Development Commission, and I'm honored. Mr. Salvo also sits on that commission with me, and I'm honored to work with the residents there to better be informed, advocate for the town, and help our economic development here. I'm running for Board of Selectmen because I really want to give back to the community. So I've been here almost 9 years. I feel it's my opportunity to step up and influence change and help to serve the community for which I live and for which I plan on living for as long as they'll have me. I encourage the Norton community to come out and vote on Tuesday, April 23rd. I think this election gives a great opportunity not only of the choices for Board of Selectmen, but also with the Charter Commission on the ballot as well. If elected, I will bring a fresh perspective, a female perspective, or additional female perspective to the Board of Selectmen and also the future vision. I will listen and I will be fair and I will focus on the systemic issues as well as what is the overall goal and roadmap that we can have for our town to make this a community in which we all want to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That completes our opening statements, and we'll now move to the questions. We're going to start our first question with Mr. Kimball. All the candidates will be asked the same question. They'll get up to 3 minutes to answer, and then candidates will get up to 1 minute to rebut anything if they wish. So, Mr. Kimball, we'll start with you. First question. First one's always easy, so don't get lulled into a false sense of security here. Describe Norton for us. Tell us how you see this town, where you think it's headed, and what you think the people want. Give us your vision on this community.
Well, Norton reminds me a lot of the small town I grew up in. When I left after high school, there was 11,000 people that lived there, and it's always been my home since 1979. The town is very, in my opinion, a bedroom community. It's always been a great place to live, a great place to raise children. We have some of the best schools around, in my opinion, and I think it's probably one of the nicest communities in southeastern Massachusetts. My future vision for the town, obviously, is to come up with ways to continue to improve our infrastructure, to continue to fund our budgets, work with our state representatives and senators to come up with additional funding in any way we possibly can, and continue to make Norton a great community it really is. The town is changing. I mean, there's almost 20,000 of us here now, and there's opportunity probably in the very near future as new industry comes into town, so will additional housing to go along with it. We've been restricted on for years on how many apartments we've had in Norton. We've since changed that with the addition to 274 East Main Street. With that project now being completed, we do have a number of affordable apartments. So I think in general, Norton is the best town, in my opinion, to live. Been here since, like I said, since 1979. I had no plans on staying here. I was transferred in with anticipating it was going to be transferred out in 3 years, and the company decided to go out of business instead. So I had the pleasure of being able to stay here, raise my daughter here, and continue to be a part of the community. And I've really enjoyed doing that. So I think it's important that we figure out a way to work out our differences, work out our problems, and come up with a solution that's honest, transparent, and obviously puts us in the right direction to make sure that town continues to be the kind of place you all want to live in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Mr. Salvo, same question to you. Describe Norton for us. Tell us how you see this town, where you think it is headed, and what you think the people want. Give us your vision for this community.
Well, I moved here 41 years ago, raised a family. At that time, 41 years ago, the town had trash-wide pickup. We've seen different things diminish over the years because of costs rising, etc. My vision in the future is to, I don't want to echo what Mr. Kimball said, but we're all on the same page, is trying to find ways to keep things funded and making sure that we have a better place to live and to grow. Right now, we're a drive-through community. We have a lot of people that drive to other towns and spend money. I want to see it the other way, and hopefully with this new park that's being built, they'll have some retail stores and restaurants, and people will be able to come here and spend money. So my vision is to help grow this, to get this where it needs to be, and to continue to serve the town of Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. And Mr. Conway, again, same question. Describe Norton for us. Tell us how you want to see this town, where you think it is headed, and what it is you think the people want, and give us your vision for this community.
Excellent. I think Norton's greatest asset is its people. The community around us is fantastic. My wife and my young daughters moved here 7.5 years ago. It'll be 8 years this October. So obviously much less time in town than Mr. Kimball and Mr. Salvo. In that time, we found it to be a warm, welcoming place to raise a family, and we have no intention of leaving. And because of that, that's one of the reasons why I've chosen to run today. Where it's headed, I think, is a question that has a lot of answers depending on who you talk to. There's a strong contingent that wants it to remain a small farming town. There are others that want it to grow robustly and have it join the Mansfield and Foxboroughs of the world. I don't know where I fall on that. I want to create a safe community, a community where people can feel comfortable to come and live. The idea of a village core zoning district where people can walk and visit these shops, I think is a great idea. Unfortunately, I don't know if we have the patience to take the 10 to 20 years it will take to realize that. I hope we do, because I think that would make a very strong impact on our town. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. DeLay, describe Norton for us. Tell us how you see this town, where you think it is headed, and what you think the people want. Give us your vision for this community.
Great. I think Norton's a great town. I think I echo the sentiments of the others in that the people are its best asset. I truly, when we're out in the community, recently have been engaged as well in the soccer program for my son, and really have found that people care. They genuinely care. They want to help. They want to be involved. I think one of the things in respect to where we're heading is, I think while there are a lot of good intentions, I think we lack the leadership that is needed to bring it together, to collaborate together, to really understand what is our vision and what do we want to be when we grow up. I think that we have the opportunity to listen to our neighbors, to understand that, and as Jack said, there are varying opinions, and I think each of them are valid, and I think that those are to be considered in where we see ourselves in the next 10 or 20 years. I do feel like the recent projects for the Village Center Core, I think that's an excellent opportunity for us to really shape how we see ourselves. I think it would be great to have areas where we have more community engagement, where we have places for people to come and really sit down and enjoy time together with each other, both from a perspective of whether it's just shopping in town or just walking around the area. I think we have some other opportunities as well. The community center is certainly an opportunity worth discussing too. And the great thing is I do agree that we have really good schools. I think from the dedication of the teachers and the administration, I certainly feel comfortable, and I'm very excited that my son will be joining the schools next year in kindergarten, so it's a great opportunity. I think all of these things will help us shape what the vision is and really help us understand what are the next steps that we have to take so that not only are we making effective decisions on behalf of the town, but we're really thinking about what do we need to do to move to that next step. Revenue will certainly be a step in that process. We have to think about how do we develop our economy with the right mindset. We don't want to bring industry in or have something in town just because we're looking for the revenue to generate and to reduce the tax burden on its people. So I think we just have to be thoughtful about our decisions and make sure that we do take the concerns of others, really understand what we want as a community, and move forward with that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody wants to rebut all that hard-hitting to my softball question, but Mr. Kimball, any rebuttal for your 1 minute?
No, I think that everyone did a great job of explaining where they stand, and I think it's wonderful that we actually have 4 candidates running for 2 seats. I think that's important, that people have the opportunity to vote for people they think will follow along their lines and give them guidance, and I think it's a great opportunity to have 4 qualified people available to serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salvo, anything in your 1 minute?
I don't really have anything to say other than what everybody already said. I'm not going to repeat it again. But, just to reach out to the candidates that are running tonight, that, I got to say, I've been here a long time doing this, and for once that we don't have a negative with other people telling us so we can do a better job of each other. They're all respectful 2 people that are running against us, and I really appreciate that. It goes a long ways to run a good campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, any rebuttal?
Just to build on what Mr. Salvo said, have the utmost respect for your years of service to the community. I don't think anyone could doubt your passion and commitment to the town, so thank you very much for that.
And Ms. Deli, anything you would like to add?
I agree with the other 3 candidates. I think really it's a great opportunity for the townspeople in Norton. We do have 2 seats available. We have 4 people here, and I don't see any one of us, should we not be in that seat following the election, that we would stop caring about the town, contributing to the town, and volunteering in other ways or other fashions. So I think it's a great opportunity right now for people to get out and vote and really look at what do we want. And I think a lot of that stems from really the community getting involved and not just, thinking that, we have a board of selectmen, they'll make decisions and do things. We really do want that engagement.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the second question, and this one will begin with Mr. Salvo. Mr. Salvo, the selectmen have asked for a debt exclusion override of about $25 million to build a new town hall and senior center. Let's skip for a moment the complicated questions about the need, the financing method, and the price. Instead, let's ask this simple question. Has this specific plan been studied and discussed enough to actually be brought to a vote in June?
I think we need to talk about it more. It's something that it's a big item ticket. I don't think it's I don't believe that we've talked about it and had enough meetings to get people knowing where the money's, first of all, where the money's going to come from. We got to figure out how we're going to fund it if it does pass. But we have to give the people the opportunity to tell us whether they want it. First, we got to want it. Then we got to find out where the money's coming from to pay for this project. There's no doubt in my mind that we need both of them. It's just that we've had tough times in the previous years trying to get overrides to pass. And I don't know how it's going to be on this one. It depends on how people get out and vote. And like I said, we got to give people time to absorb all this, and that's what we're going to do in the upcoming months is having meetings so people can come and listen to about this, both of those projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. Mr. Conway, same question. The selectmen have asked for a debt exclusion override of about $25 million to build a new town hall and senior center. Let's for a moment skip the questions about need, the financing method, and the price. Instead, let's ask this simple question: has this specific plan been studied and discussed enough to actually be brought to a vote in June?
Thank you, Bill. I certainly don't think it's been considered enough. Real estate and construction is what I do for a living. So seeing the status of the plans, you asked to exclude cost, and I simply can't do that from my background. I think the cost is very high. I think the location is very problematic. When we talk about wanting to build a village core district, having a town hall and a community center that is accessible to that village core is instrumental in creating that New England village feel that I think so many residents want to have. Speaking selfishly, as a candidate, having a community center to go to meet people would have been much more helpful than going door to door, because most people these days do not open their door for strange men that come up to their window, which I can understand. I would very much like to see another few rounds of public presentation and collect some of the feedback from our residents and help shape these proposals better. When it comes down to the location, the utilization, the size, and the cost, I think we can come up with a much better plan that is much more affordable, because the need for sure is there. The town hall is in dire need of replacement, and the community center can do so much more. I've been so impressed to learn about Beth Rossi, who runs the Council of Aging and the Senior Center, and I can't wait to see what she could do with a more impactful, empowering space. So.
Thank you. Ms. Deli, same question. The Selectmen have asked for a debt exclusion override of about $25 million to build a new town hall and senior center. Let's for a moment skip the questions about the need, the financing method, and the price. Instead, let's ask this simple question: has this specific plan been studied and discussed enough to actually be brought to a vote in June?
I think the simple answer is no. The plan has not been studied and discussed enough. I think this is a great area of opportunity for us and how we actually go about these projects. I think that we could make improvements in the process where we engage the community earlier. We solicit feedback in various fashions, whether it be at information sessions or town meetings or via mailings or something online. I think that if the community were more informed and involved in this discussion, that you wouldn't have so many, I don't want to call it challenges, but certainly I feel that people don't feel that they have enough information. They weren't informed in some of the decisions that were made. While there may be great reasons for those decisions, have not been presented. So I think that we do need additional time to understand. I think we all agree on the need, as you said, Bill, but I think that it still is worth discussing the needs, understanding what additional options may have been considered, or maybe even some options that we haven't considered. I think that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and it really is important for the community to feel comfortable about this and feel like they have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimball, same question. The Selectmen have asked for a debt exclusion override of about $25 million to build a new town hall and senior center. Let's for a moment skip the questions about the financing method and the price and the need. Instead, let's ask the simple question: has this specific plan been studied and discussed enough to actually be brought to a vote in June?
Well, I think we've, first of all, we have to go back and explain how this process all started. You know, back in 2011, we built the high school. We created a joint building committee, which was, in essence, it was the appointment of the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. The first project they looked at was whether or not we should make an expansion on the high school. And in June of 2011, keep in mind, 3 years after one of the worst financial crises we've had in this country in many, many years, the 70% of the voters in Norton that took the time to vote approved the $33 million debt exclusion for the new high school. Now, I'm hearing recently that, we can't afford this, and to a certain extent, I totally understand the reasoning behind that. But I want to remind everyone again that, we're in a position right now where, it costs so much this year, 5 years from now, it'll probably cost a lot more. The problem is, as much as we've tried since January 2017 to get the information out, and through all these public meetings, they were all public meetings, a few of which I attended. So I know no one else there really having any insight or input on what the process was. But we have a number of dedicated people that spent a lot of time creating this plan. Are we ready for it? I've asked, I went back to the building committee in early April and asked them to consider removing the article from the annual town meeting warrant in May 17th, and having it put on as a separate article, just like we do with the high school, along with a vote later in June. Not sure how much information we're going to be able to get out there in the meantime, but I do know the committee is planning on having additional meetings, open meetings where people can talk about it. And I know that they're going to have as much input, give them as much input as they possibly can. If the project fails, we'll have to deal with it again in the future, but we have to stay in focus and realize that the Council on Aging building does not work. You know, originally started out as a schoolhouse, two-room schoolhouse, became a fire station, and now it's probably not much bigger than the room we're standing in tonight. The town hall is totally out of shape. Anyone who wants to ever take a tour, I encourage you to do so. Be afraid to go down to the basement, that's all I can tell you. But I think it's important that people get as much information as they can before they make the decision. So long story short, I believe we've done a pretty good job of educating the public. We need to do more of it before the June 3rd meeting, but I think it's important that we continue to focus on what the town really needs, and and focus on the fact that we want to make it one of the greatest communities we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Mr. Salvo, any rebuttal in your 1 minute?
Just a rebuttal. I think everybody's point was well taken on this particular item. And like you said, Mr. Kimball just said, we need to have more meetings to discuss this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, anything in your rebuttal?
Yes, sir. I would question why we need to rush to a meeting in June for a decision. Based on the conversations I've had, both face-to-face and online, there's still a lot of bitter feelings over the recent overrides, and I get the sensation that a lot of people would vote no purely out of spite for their perceptions about what undid the override vote past 2 times it came up. Until those seeds of division are addressed and blown away, I don't believe that the Town Hall and Community Center has a viable chance of passing. I would much rather spend our time educating people on the need and revising the plan to make it much more palatable, and try to possibly include a general operating override to address some of the concerns that the school parents have, building that consensus towards a final solution.
Thank you. Ms. Deli, anything in your response?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned, I think this is certainly an area of improvement for us. This is what I do at work. We focus on working with teams, building teams, understanding what issues are, and I think in this particular case, there are a variety of issues, from the communication to the cost, the need versus the wants. I think one thing that we can agree on is that there is general consensus that we do need these buildings. I don't think that we've prioritized appropriately, and I would certainly echo Jack's comments as well, and in respect to why are we rushing this. And I would ask Mr. Kimball, I remember during a Board of Selectmen meeting that you had some discussion about actually moving this to the April special town meeting. If you could talk to that, and I know Mr. Flaherty was the one who did propose that this be moved to June. Thank you. And I would just like to understand more around that discussion and your involvement in that.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimball, your 1 minute.
Well, first of all, the question about how it became about, Mr. Flaherty and I probably had a conversation about it, but I'm the one who actually went to the building committee and asked them to consider moving the article. Again, this is a warrant article that was put on by the Board of Selectmen at the request of a appointed building committee that was formed by the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. So I was the one who actually went to the school committee, building committee, and asked them to consider moving the article to June 3rd, just for transparency, allow people the opportunity to focus on one issue only. So I hope I clarified that question. The rest of it is really pretty much what we want to do. I mean, if it fails in June, I do believe it still has to go to the ballot. and then we can figure out what's going to happen after that. But I know there's going to be a number of additional meetings coming up very soon, and we'll make an effort to make sure everybody is aware of those meetings. But you know, if it fails, I believe at some point we're going to have to come back. Regarding.
Cut you off there, Mr.
Okay,
Cole.
thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next question, which will begin with Mr. Conway. Mr. Conway, Norton has failed at one of the basic and primary jobs of any town, to provide clean, usable water to all the residents in the water system. We know a filtration plant is under construction, but there are still doubts among people that it will solve the entire problem. You folks are not running for Water Sewer Commission, but people look to their selectmen for answers. So I ask you all to look into that camera and tell the many, many people with ugly brown water staining their clothes and ruining their appliances what you can do as a selectman to help them. You thought it was going to be easy the whole way, didn't you? Yeah.
Thanks for the hard question, Bill. Appreciate that. Great. So as someone who has brown water myself, I have a vested interest in finding solutions for this. What comes to mind is a few years ago, there was a town meeting where there was an article to bring the Water Sewer Commission under the authority of the Board of Selectmen. And at the time, it was resoundingly voted down to the point where people cheered in the audience. And thinking about that, for me, that says that there was more of a lack of trust in the leadership at the time than there was in having people, potentially unqualified people, run for the water sewer. And I believe we're reaping the outcome of those decisions. There is no way to hold the Water Sewer Board accountable. They are elected, they could get voted out, but again, as we've seen time and time again, the civic engagement in this town isn't necessarily the best. We have a number of races that are completely uncontested, driving low voter turnout. When getting good candidates to fill challenging roles like that is extremely hard. In this instance, I would strongly advocate for people to consider voting for the Charter Commission, at which point the entire structure of town government, including how the Water Sewer Board is managed, would come into play. Recommendations could be made to bring that back under the authority of the Board of Selectmen and the town manager. And I believe more than anything, by having a strong hand to hold people accountable would have changed the outcome of this. And I truly hope that the water filtration system works well. We don't have quite the issue that a lot of people do in terms of bad laundry, but my water looks like a light pale ale at all times and doesn't taste like it, so it's kind of disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Selly, same question. Norton has failed at one of the basic and primary jobs of any town, to provide clean, usable water to the residents in its system. We know a filtration plant is under construction, but there are still doubts it will solve the entire problem. You aren't running for Water Sewer Commission, but people look to their selectmen for answers. Please look into the camera and tell the many, many people with ugly brown water staining their clothes and ruining their appliances what you will do as a selectman to help them.
Sure. Perhaps I'll wait until the camera's pointed on me. Thank you. So I am also one of those people who have brown water. It does affect my laundry as well as other things. I think there are a few considerations here. One is there is doubt that the water treatment facility will be effective. I think what a lot of people don't know is that there are other discussions and studies going on regarding what may be some of the other causes. So whether it be the pipes that are feeding water into our communities, or is it something else? I think regardless of it, I think it is a wait and see moment. I think we really need to evaluate how effective the water treatment facility is. From that step, if there are additional issues, then we really need to understand what are those issues, who are they impacting, and what are the best means to resolve those. I think it's very important for us to communicate effectively. I know people are very frustrated. I think we also have a responsibility to the community that when issues happen, that we really do need to think, how do we help people? I was appalled by a post that I saw on social media where somebody had the darkest water, the brownest water that I've ever seen. And knowing that in my household, we schedule, the kids going into the tub to make sure that we have the least amount of orange water. I understand that struggle, and I think that we need to do something to accommodate that, whether that be we open up our high school gymnasium facilities or other facilities so that people have access to clean water, at least to bathe. I think it's a great improvement that we put the water filling station in at Town Hall. I use it every week. So that has been certainly a nice bonus to not having to go to another town to either pay for water or fill up those jugs. But I do think that we need to be transparent. I think that if we have an issue, we can't hide that we have that issue, and we need to work together to address it. I think that we can do a lot, and my hope is, in my line of business, we always plan for the worst and expect the best. So certainly I'm expecting the best that the water treatment facility will show marked improvement in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball, same question to you. Norton has failed at one of the basic and primary jobs of any town to provide clean, usable water to all the residents in its system. We know a filtration plant is under construction, but there are concerns it won't solve the entire problem. You aren't running for Water Sewer Commission, but people look to their selectmen for answers. Please look into the camera and tell the many, many people with ugly brown water staining their clothes and ruining their appliances what you will do as a selectman to help them.
So I have to be careful how I answer this because my wife is probably my #1 critic when it comes to dirty water in town. It's obvious that we've had a problem for years. My wife has been a nurse for over 40 years. White uniforms. Back in the 80s when we first moved here, she was complaining about brown water even back then. So it's been an ongoing situation. The new facility that they're building, the water plant facility, will make an improvement. I don't believe it's going to make much of a difference. It's going to make somewhat of a difference. If you take clean water and you push it through dirty pipes, you're going to come out with dirty water. Until we can improve our infrastructure and get that infrastructure up to speed and to a point where we're taking the time to cleanse the water, let's put it in pipes that are going to make it all happen. As a member of the capital improvement committee, I've encouraged many times over the years the water sewer commissioners to look at making improvements on a lot of our pipes and waterways. Pine Street, as an example, is 103 years old, and the section between Plain and the water pump and the well down the street is going to be cleaned this spring, replaced this spring. We still have a number of areas for infrastructure that's still is a mess, and we have to figure out a way to clean it up. The selectmen have tried 3 times to go to town meeting to suggest that we need to have the ability to appoint qualified people to do the job and have not been successful because people want to retain their right to vote on the positions, which I understand and I respect. The Charter Commission or the Charter Committee, whichever is formed this year, should probably look into that, would be my recommendation to do so. But I think overall, if you put dirty water into clean pipes, you're going to have somewhat dirty water. And until we can figure that out and do it and spend the extra money to improve our infrastructure, we're going to continue to have dirty water. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Salvo, same question to you. Norton has failed at one of the basic and primary jobs of any town to provide clean, usable water to the residents in its system. We know a filtration plant is under construction, but there are doubts it will solve the entire problem. You aren't running for Water Sewer Commission, but please but people look to their selectmen for answers. Please look into the camera and tell the many, many people with ugly brown water staining their clothes and ruining their appliances what you will do as a selectman to help them.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize for all you people that have brown water. All the years that I've been on the Board of Selectmen, I get inundated with phone calls about brown water, brown water. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know, as a commission, the select board cannot overrule anything that the water department does because they're an enterprise account. So I feel bad that we don't have any power in instructing them how to move forward and spend their money. It's the taxpayers that need to vote on how they spend the money for replacing infrastructure with pipes. This new filtration system is going to keep iron and manganese going into the future, further to the pipes that are already here. But until we clean them, like Mr. Kimball said, until we clean the pipes, it's still going to happen. You know, I went to a town last year in Walpole. There's a thing called ice pigging, which they push slush in a pipe, and they do about 3,000 feet at a time. And at the end of 3,000 feet, you get this brown gooey stuff, black to no end, coming out the end of the pipe. By the time the slush turns into liquid again, the water is perfectly clean. And I said this, we all said this before, that, this is something we got to look into to try to start at our worst section of town where the pipes are the worst and try to show to the community, show to the taxpayers that we're trying to do good to make the water, more quality for them to drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. Mr. Conway, anything you'd like to say in rebuttal?
Yes, sir. I think when we think about the water situation, it seems to be a recurring problem within the town. Things get ignored to a point where they simply can't be ignored anymore, and that's what finally forces action. At the joint school committee Board of Selectmen meeting the other day, last Thursday, there was discussion on the high school and what was the plan B if the high school project didn't go through. And the plan B was to lose accreditation. There was no plan B. I think we need to avoid that sort of crisis management style of leadership and really push for solutions much faster. I'm personally disappointed to hear that Mr. Kimball doesn't think that the water filtration plant will solve all our issues, so I guess we're going to have to buy some more filters on the way home.
Thank you. Ms. Deli?
Thank you. Just a couple points. We know that this is a systemic issue within the town, and I want to mention I was actually out in Mansfield just yesterday, and somebody had seen my campaign information. They asked me if I was running for the Board of Selectmen, and I indicated that I was. And he was a gentleman on the Mansfield Democratic Committee, and he said to me, the first words out of his mouth are, "You guys have an awful brown water problem. What can you do?" And, again, a great question from the moderator, a great question that is posed to us. And I really do think that we have to be willing to sit down at the table and have these discussions and facilitate that conversation. As Board of Selectmen, we may not have any authority over that, but I think it is our job, and it should be one of our priorities to speak on behalf of the town and make sure that the situation is addressed and that the right people are engaged in the conversations. And then maybe just our role is to communicate that, so the people that need to do the work can do the work, and we make sure that we're transparent about what's going on. And also just a quick kudos to the man behind the keyboard on the flushing notifications. I think those are fantastic and certainly helps to keep us aware of what's going on in town and what sort of impact we may have in our houses.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball, you got anything on your 1 minute?
No, I just think that we continue. We have had joint meetings with the Water Sewer Commission, and we have tried to come up with some ideas and give them some direction on what we think has to be done. A number of projects are going on this year that we talked about last year, so we are looking to the future. My point about the one water treatment plant is the fact that we have 4 wells. And one water treatment plant is probably going to only take care of 2 of them. So you're going to still have a certain amount of manganese and iron in the water. So therefore, it's probably not going to be able to completely control it until we probably go to the expense of building yet a second plant. Iron and manganese that's being drowned on the ground now is because of our increased population. When I moved here in '79, the water was pretty good shape. As you draw more water, as you go out further and you drag more water into the wells, that creates the problem. And our wells are stressed, and that's part of the reason why we're having these problems. But I will continue to work with the Water Sewer Commissioners to make sure that we try to get what's best for the community.
Thank you. Mr. Salvo, anything you'd like to rebut?
No, I just like to say that I will still continue to work with the water department to try to find a better way that we can move forward and clean our pipes so that people will have good quality water.
Thank you. Next question, and we will start this one with Ms. Deli. Ms. Deli, are you for or against the formation of a charter commission to study town government, which will be decided in the same election that you are running in on April 23rd, and why?
That's an easy one. Thank you. I am most certainly for the development of the Charter Commission. I think that there is no other time for us to take a look at the town government and study it and determine, are we doing the right things? This really came to light to me when I had an opportunity to attend one of the Board of Selectmen meetings where we had some Wheaton students there, and Mr. Kimball referred to our government as what was done during, the Puritans in the 1600s. And I think having that oversight and really seeing it at the 10,000 foot brings it to fruition to say, you know what, we really can't go wrong with studying how our government can be better. And some people have asked, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that we go to a town council? Are you for that? And I can't respond to any sort of change that I would support at this point, but I think that we definitely need the evaluation, and I think it's great for the 11 people who have stepped up to run for those positions. And I look forward to the Charter Commission passing and seeing 9 of those candidates start to work together to determine whether or not we're doing things the right way. Are we doing them the most effective? How can we get better? I think the opportunity for process improvements is endless, and it should always be something that we continuously look for as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball, same question. Are you for or against the forming of a charter commission to study town government, which will be decided in the same election you were in on April 23rd, and why?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm for or against it. There's, in the year 2020, year ending in 0, based on our present-day charter, we are required, the Board of Selectmen, along with other departments, are required to appoint an 11-member board, which would be an 11-member committee, to review the charter. The Charter Commission, in my opinion, probably has a bit more power to do so, and if nothing else, it's getting new people involved that haven't been involved before, and maybe come up with a different perspective on how our town government should work. I'm not sure how I stand on either one, whether it be a committee or a commission. I do know that I want to see the results of it. I totally agree that we need to look it over. I totally agree that there are some areas that need to be improved upon, and whether or not the present form of government continues on, or if we change it. In my own opinion, it will be decided based on what's best for the community. So I don't really have a position one way or the other. I do need to get some more facts. I need to know exactly what direction we're going in before I can make my logical decision, but I don't know right now how I would stand on either the commission or the committee. If the commission does fail, then we would, the selectmen and others, including the moderator, would have to appoint a committee to basically do the same thing. But I think it's interesting, and I'm actually think it's a positive step that 11 individuals who have put their name on a ballot to make this happen, and I think that's encouraging, and it shows that maybe there is a new direction the town has to go. So I'm going to be open-minded about this, but I want to hear what the final results are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Mr. Salvo, are you for or against the formation of a charter commission to study town government, which will be decided in the same election you were in on April 23rd, and why?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the people that ran out and got all these signatures to form this citizens for charter change. There's a lot of hard work getting those. I think we owe it to the townspeople to make the decision at the meeting on the 23rd how they want to vote for it or against it. And then if it does get approved, I mean, my decision based on facts of what they're finding or how they want to change the town government, at that time I'll make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, same question. Are you for or against the forming of a charter commission to study town government, which will be decided in the same election you were in on April 23rd, and why?
I am most definitely for the formation of the Charter Commission. What I like about the Charter Commission approach versus the Charter Committee, because there is a bit of confusion between the two, is the commission is an elected board of 9 people out of the 11 that are running, and ultimately their recommendations get voted on by the townspeople. The Charter Committee, which is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, the moderator, and perhaps others, ultimately rests on their shoulders whether or not it gets implemented. From my understanding of the last time that was done, there was a vote done to implement some changes that were recommended by the townspeople. It passed, and nothing was done after that period. So I fully believe in giving the power to the townspeople to vote what they want. And whether they vote the recommendations up and down remains to be seen, because we don't know what they are. It could have to do with the form of town government that we have. It could have to do with the Water Sewer Commission. It could have to do with open town meeting. We don't know yet. We don't know what we don't know. And we won't know it unless we spend the time to study it. And I am so thankful for the 11 people that have volunteered their time to spend upwards of a year getting into the nitty-gritty form of various town governments and making recommendations for us based on who Norton is today and who we think it wants to be. And I would not want to deprive people of any opportunity to learn about how we could do things better.
Thank you. Ms. Deli, any rebuttal?
Thank you, Bill. I think there are two important distinctions here. One, Jack hit on in respect to the Charter Commission is going to come back to the town with recommendations. It's still going to be in front of the townspeople for vote, and I think that's a misconception that might be out there. And the other thing is, while I agree that the 11-member board coming in 2020, may be doing a similar vision, or not vision, similar task, I think the difference and the distinction here is that we have 11 people who want to do this. They're inspired to do it, and they have the passion to do it. And they're doing it on a volunteer basis. So while I truly hope that the Charter Commission passes, and I hope that the folks that are elected continue to approach this with the same passion, I would ask that, and should it not pass in 2020, that whomever is seated in the Board of Selectmen, that they consider these 11 candidates to serve for that board committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball, any rebuttal?
No, I echo Mr. Dewey's comment. I mean, if you got 11 people running for a position, the Board of Selectmen only make one appointment. So, when you talk about, the committee itself, there's a planner, there's a school committee, there's 3, I believe, members at large. There's 3, I believe, that come from the moderator. It's a rather large group. But I would encourage anyone on any of those groups that if it does fail under the Charter Commission, that you consider appointing the people that did step forward to try to look at the entire document. It's old, it's been around a while, and I totally agree that we have to take a look at it and figure out how we can make it work and make it better. So, the one thing that comes to mind right away is, most towns are going to select board now instead of selectmen. That would be one of the recommendations I would make. Whatever form of government we pick up, I mean, I'm perfectly willing to work with anything that's offered.
10 seconds.
And I think it's important that we know what we're voting for, and I think it's important that we move ahead, and in one way or the other, we make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salvo, any rebuttal for you?
No comment. Everybody's point was well taken. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Conway.
Yes, just once again to reiterate that the choice on April 23rd is an opportunity to learn more, not to vote on any particular recommendations. So if people are interested in looking into options, that's when they should vote yes. And then the up or down vote on whether those options could be implemented comes at a later date. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And this will be, despite your protests and you're begging me, this will be the last question that we'll try to go through quickly before we go to the closing statements. We'll make it a simple one, and we'll start with Mr. Kimball. What's the biggest single problem facing Norton, and what are you going to do about it?
Very brief question. I was ready to write down more. The biggest problem, I believe, is in current years is a number of factors, and I think most of it evolves around communication. You've got social media sites out there that, spread the word as gospel, and they're not exactly true. You don't come to people that are in the know and ask questions, which is, again, a part of the communication problem. Having people visible, accessible, to make sure that questions are answered as they come up. I think the biggest problem we have is understanding what we can and cannot do and trying to make decisions based on what we actually can do. We can't go by rumor. We can't go by how we feel. We have to look at every situation and figure out what's the best way to handle it. The biggest crisis we have in this country today, in my opinion, is a total lack of communication and disrespect for one another. And as much as we try to work together, we all have our own agendas, so to speak, and I think it's important that people understand that I, as one candidate, I don't have a hidden agenda. You pretty much see what you're going to get. I'm it. I'm very vocal. People know where I stand. They don't always agree with me, but I think it's important that we continue to improve the lines of communication and work with other boards and committees to make Norton the best place it can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Mr. Salvo, what is the single biggest problem facing Norton today? And as a selectman, what are you going to do about it?
Well, all we can do is educate. You know, I have more discussions with people on an everyday basis about different topics in the town of Norton. When they don't believe what you have to say to them, I tell them, please come to the meeting and learn for yourself, because you're going to hear it from somebody else and it's going to be a totally different story. And by the time it gets to two other people, it's totally out of proportion. And the hardest thing is to try to educate people. They want to hear what they want to hear. They want to see what they want to see. But, you know, till you come and actually see it in front of your face, what we have to say at a meeting, I don't believe in rumors. I don't believe in gossip. I try to be upfront with everybody. I think I've been totally upfront with everybody in the years that I spent on this board. I don't think I had one confrontation that, you know, somebody hates me about something. I try to be upfront. I do the best of my ability. And moving forward, you know, we can only do what we can do, like Mr. Kimball said. You know, and money can only get so much money from our tax receipts and everything else that comes in from building and this, that, the other. There's only so much to go around. We don't have a slush fund. You know, we hand out what we have to hand out. A lot of times we don't know until August, September, by the time we get our final numbers. So it's just people want to know what's going on. Come to a meeting, come to town meeting. Don't listen to everybody else's rumors because they're not always true. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. Mr. Conway, what is the single biggest problem facing Norton today? And as a selectman, what are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Bill. What I see as the single biggest problem facing Norton right now is a lack of trust between the leadership and the townspeople. Mr. Kimball touched on social media and communication, and right now there is not a strong social media presence from the Board of Selectmen that allows some of these rumors and wild speculations to take root and run rampant. And I agree that very few of those have any basis in factual reality, but without someone on there to proactively share information, these things can happen and take on a life of their own. When I think about designing an environment for my employees to work in, we use the philosophy see, know, trust. And that's know with a K-N. When you see people, you get to know them. When you get to know them, you get to trust them. There are certain demographics in town that are more prone to go to town meetings, to meet the leadership, but there is a whole new generation that does not have the opportunity to get out to public meetings. I can previously consider myself among that. As a working parent with two small kids and a 2-hour commute home, very rarely am I home in time to be able to get to a meeting, so I watch them online. If you have a presence, whether it's in the physical realm or in social media, people will see you, they will get to know you, they will get to trust you, and they will trust what you say. And right now, I believe that that's not the case. As part of my living by example, I've talked about building trust through transparency. And as a first-time candidate, this is my first time going through campaign finance. I posted the details of my first campaign finance report there to show that I am spending the money that people have entrusted me with responsibly. And that same type of trust through transparency is what I would like to bring to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Ms. Deli? What is the single biggest problem facing Norton today? And as a selectman, what are you going to do about it?
That's a great question, Bill, and it's certainly...
I'm so surprised.
I know. It's certainly a loaded question as well. So I don't think that there's a single problem facing Norton. I think that there are several problems facing Norton with varying degrees. I think because of that, what ends up being the single most problem is that we collectively aren't working together as a community. There's been trust issues, there's been town side versus school side. There are so many different arguments and so many different things that I think we have to work together to solve the problem. I think if we work together, again, we talked about the brown water. What happens if the treatment facility doesn't work? What are the next steps there? What about the lack of services for those in need or the lack of transportation within the community for those who don't have transportation? We need to create opportunities for revenue. We need to work together to say, what do we want in this town and how do we bring it here? It's not just dirty water keeping people away. Additionally, we need, as everybody has said, we need to communicate better and we need to do it in different modes. We need to be more transparent. And above all, we really need to empower people. We need to empower our townspeople so that they feel like they have a voice, so that their opinions are heard, are considered, and find ways to create engagement, learn what the townspeople need. Some of that will be through town meetings. Some of them could be through maybe we have, coffee hours, open hours, things like that. There are many things that we can do, and I think once we start having the dialogue and having those discussions with others, that those things will start to become more transparent to us and help us to create what that vision is for Norton and how do we work together to make this the community that we all want to live in and stay in for years and years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball, any rebuttal?
No, I basically agree with what everyone said. I think it's important that we understand, though, that part of the leadership is to be available, to offer comments or concerns or anything that might arise. And I know over the years, there's probably not a day that goes by that I'm not dealing with something that someone has on their mind, whether I run into them on the street or in the town hall, or if they call me. I still have a landline. I know that's ancient times, but I still have one. Still have the same number I've had since 1979. And a lot of people have my cell number. So when something's heard through a social media site or through a rumor of any sort, people do call me and ask me about it, and I try to clarify it. I think the word trust is a strong word, and I think that
15 seconds.
I think it's important that people understand that as a long-term member, I feel that people can trust me, and I hope they continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Salvo, anything in your 1 minute?
Just a comment on social media. I don't think it's a good idea, practice for the Board of Selectmen to be posting things on social media to go against the open meeting law. I think we have a town website that'll be put out there through one of our town employees that's allowed to have access to let people know information, what's going on. I mean, I myself won't get caught up in social media, present myself as a selectman to give input on things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway?
No comments.
You're all set. And Mr. Lay? I'm sorry, Mr. Deli. I knew I'd do it sooner or later.
I know, that's okay. It's not the first time.
Yeah, I apologize.
I think it's all great comments. I certainly would like to expand a bit on what Mr. Salvo said in respect to the social media. While I agree it sometimes isn't the best avenue, it certainly is a great way to communicate. I think that you could put some procedures and policies around how you do that effectively. Also, who can do that. The town website, while it is out there, it's very difficult to navigate, very difficult to find information that you're looking for. And as Mr. Salvo and I both know, not all of the commissions are even on there. The Industrial Development Commission isn't even represented on our town website. So I think we can do better there. But overall, I think that we do have the opportunities and discussions are starting, and so that's certainly a positive step.
Thank you. And that will complete the question part of our debate tonight. And now we will move to the closing statements. And going in reverse order of the opening statement, the first closing statement will come from Renee Deli.
Thank you. So I do want to again thank the gentleman who I'm standing here with. I appreciate certainly more now that I've been through this process, the time and commitment that it takes, not only from a campaign perspective, but also from a perspective of attending meetings. And just to reiterate, this is something that we do voluntarily. So it's because we have commitment here, we have the best interests of the town at hand, and we do want to work together to make it a better community. But it's certainly a pivotal time for us in the town. We have a lot of big projects going on, from the solar farms to the Charter Commission. We have the Blue Star Business Park and the Village Center. I think all of these are great. I really hope that if I'm elected to this position, that I have the ability and the opportunity to really bring these things together so we can understand what is our vision. How do we implement these? How do we prioritize these? And really, how do we speak for the people and what we want to see in the town? I feel that my experience, my leadership experience, my experience in managing crises, that these will all feed into my abilities and why I'm the best candidate for this position. I do want to give back to the community. I want to serve the town, and I hope that I do have that opportunity. So as I close, again, I thank both Mr. Kimball and Mr. Salvo for the years that they've done volunteering for this, because it certainly is, it is a time commitment. It is something that you do voluntarily, and it's, nobody's pushing you, and there aren't 100 people out there, trying to run for these positions. So it's certainly something that I think is worth mentioning and something worth thanking the both of them for. Additionally, I look forward to the community supporting me, and please come out and vote on Tuesday, April 23rd at the Norton High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next closing statement would come from Bob Salvo.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all again for having me this evening. It was a pleasure to hear from all candidates on all the topics of what their vision is. I'd like to ask you all to vote for me on the 23rd, which is next Tuesday. I'd like to continue to serve as a Board of Selectmen and to move the town forward in a better direction. So please come out on the 23rd and cast your vote. Everybody's vote counts. Whether you're in favor of me or any one of the candidates, I'd still like to see a big turnout on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvo. And our third closing statement comes from Bob Kimball.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank the other candidates, too. I think it's great that we have, people with different ideas and different visions on what the community should, where we should be and where it should go. And it's always better to have candidates, 4 candidates for 2 seats than 2 candidates for 2 seats, because it gives people an opportunity to vote based on what they feel is important. I'm hearing some comments tonight about some of the vision and some of the projects that are going on in town. The new industrial park was generated because I brought the developer together with the landowner to make sure that that property would not be turned into housing or to additional burden on the taxpayers of the town. So, one of the things that I did was bring the developer and the town together. I hear comments about the town common, which I'm chairing. I'm the chair of the Common Revitalization Committee. I've been very much involved in that. The new Vision Center, which has been put together by SERPED, I'm a member of that committee. So I have a pulse of the community. I understand how things work, and I understand what people want. I'm always around. I make what I think are the best decisions based on what I know about the project and whether or not it's going to be for the best interest of the town. I don't always agree with it, but I always think it's the best way to do it. We need to continue to find commercial tax bases, money. We need to find improved aid. We have to stop the mandates. We have to start working to improve our infrastructure. These are all very important projects, and I promise you I'll continue to stay focused on those projects. I want to thank the citizens of Norton for allowing me to serve the past 24 years as your town official. There have been a lot of ups and downs, many issues, mandates, everything that we have to deal with. But I really have enjoyed serving the community in various capacities, including as one of your selectmen. Norton still, I said earlier, is one of the best places, in my opinion, to live in the town, in the state, in the world. I don't care how you want to look at it. It's a great community. Has a lot of great people working and living here. And again, I'd encourage you to show up on the 23rd of April and vote for what you think is the best interest of the town. I will continue to serve you with strong leadership. I have the experience. I know how to get things done. I do listen and I do respond, and I'm always available. So with that, I want to say to the other members of the panel here tonight, thank you very much for stepping forward, and to Norton Media for putting this program together and allowing people the opportunity to hear our thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. And our final closing statement from Jack Conway.
Excellent. To echo what Renee had said, I want to thank both of you for your years of service to our community. I believe I said it earlier, but there can be no doubt how much you care about this town and its people, and I think that is extremely commendable. Renee talked about giving back to the community, and that's something I believe deeply in. I'm not a politician. This will be the first time I've ever run for office. I do not want to make a career out of this. I just want to try to do some good. I have some experience in that, in giving back and donating time and actually a kidney to the community. About a year ago this time, I donated an organ to someone I didn't know, because I believe that we are only as strong as our weakest link. And I want to set a strong example for my children to be the change, to be the good we want to see in the world. And that's why I'm before you as a candidate this year. Not being familiar with town government, not having years of service into it, I think that's actually a benefit for me. It allows me to ask why to some of the simpler questions and the complex ones and not accept, well, this is the way it's always been done as an answer. I have years of experience in a complex multinational environment, managing extremely complex projects, including a $60 million building project right now. I believe that if we do move forward with the town hall and community center, having me on the board as an extra set of eyes and ears to keep track on that project would be very beneficial to the town. Thank you for considering me. This is very much outside my comfort zone. I want to be the best for Norton, and I promise you I will act honestly, transparently, and try to hold ourselves accountable to your standards, the voters. And I would really appreciate your considering me on April 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our debate for this evening. I would like to thank our candidates, Bob Kimball, Bob Salvo, Jack Conway, and Renee Deli, for giving of their time to run for office and to give you this chance to hear their thoughts and positions. We wish them all good luck on April 23rd. I would also like to thank Jason Benjamin and everyone at Norton Media Center for doing the real work and making this entire production possible. Without Norton Media Center, the voters would not have this opportunity to hear from their candidates directly. Lastly, we remind everyone that Election Day is Tuesday, April 23rd. The polls will be open till 8 p.m., and it may be too late now, but I always say that if you're unable to vote in person, you at least could have obtained absentee ballots from the town clerk's office at your town hall. It always amazes me how many people come out to vote for president, and then how few come out to vote in their local government. Your local government plays a much more direct role in your life as a citizen. If you don't believe that, the next time someone proposes something in your neighborhood, or the train line is coming close to your home, or your municipal sewer connection is costing you a fortune, call your selectman or call your planning board member. Then call the president. Let me know who gets back to you sooner and who has more impact on your situation. Your local government plays an extremely important role in your life. The turnout at our local town election last year was 1%. 1%. It is your duty as a citizen and your responsibility to take an active part in choosing the people who run your government. If you don't vote, don't complain. For Norton Media Center, I'm Bill Gouveia. Thank you and happy voting.